Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and I'm back with another edition of Yarn Love, where I work with Red Heart to show off one of their fantastic yarns. This episode, I'm talking about Red Heart It's a Wrap Sprinkles, which is one of their newest addition to the It's a Wrap line. You may be familiar with the It's a Wrap Rainbow, and this one is very similar to that one. Let's take a closer look at the label. The first thing you may notice about It's a Wrap Sprinkles when you look at the label is that it's 50% cotton and 50% acrylic. This is one of my favorite blends for summer, and I'm so happy that Red Heart has added this to the line. You'll also notice that there are 623 yards and 5.29 ounces in every cake, which is a really lovely, generous amount. Now, as we turn our label over, you'll see that there is a lot, so you'll need to take that into account. And one thing I want to point out, if you get this in the store early days, the label may say 1, but if you go to the Red Heart website, you'll notice that it is actually a 2 weight. A little bit of a misprint there. That said, it works up so finely. I think you could probably, end up using it for a lot of those patterns that call for really fine yarn. Now, it is machine wash cold, gentle cycle, dry flat. I always recommend that for your handmade items anyway, but with stuff made with really, really fine thread, it's particularly important. Now, the rest of the information on here is correct. They recommend a C or 2.75 millimeter crochet hook and the same size in the knitting needles. So if we turn it over here, you can see some of the beautiful color variations that you get with sprinkles. Each one of these colorways is very different. I only have 2 of them here, but there are several of them on the Red Heart website that you can check out. Now, as another thing I want to point out here, let me set this one down. You can see that the end is very nicely tucked under the label. So that is absolutely fantastic. It's a center pull cake, so you can take that end and just pull right from the center to work with the yarn. So if I pull up one particular strand of the yarn here, let me try and get this in focus so I can show you exactly how it's constructed. Okay, hopefully you can see clearly here that this yarn is actually made up of 4 individual strings that are sort of held together. They're not really plied or twisted very much. It's pretty much just enough to hold it together as you work. So that's something you'll need to be aware of and very careful of, because obviously when you've got the 4 strands like this, it can be very easily to accidentally split with your crochet hook or your knitting needle. In fact, I tried to spend some time knitting with it last night, and I've knit with It's a Wrap Rainbow before as well, which is, of course, the same construction. However, I do not enjoy knitting with it, to be perfectly honest. It is very small. It requires very small needles, and my eyes were just too tired for it. I think unless you are an experienced knitter, this probably isn't going to be an ideal yarn to knit with. However, if you are an experienced knitter and you're used to working with finer yarns, then absolutely, I think you'll have a great time with this. I do love crocheting with it though, so let's pull up a swatch of that. So I've been swatching with my new project for this yarn with the cupcake colorway, which you can see here. It's got some really great color variations, and you can see hopefully that's just a little bit darker on the inside than it is on the outside. So here is the small swatch I've been working on so far to kind of figure out my stitch pattern. You can see it's not really exactly variegated, but it is. It's a really unique yarn, and I think each one of these colorways is going to have a really unique effect. So if I pull out a couple stitches here on my swatch, you can see it frogs very easily. No complaints there. There's not a lot of halo or fuzz to interfere with frogging. However, like I said here, you need to make sure that you're catching all those threads every time. And that is probably the biggest challenge with this yarn, is just making sure that you're not accidentally dropping one of these threads along the way as you're crocheting with it. Other than that, though, it is very easy to use. And I really enjoy the effect and the drape and the feel of this yarn. Now, I haven't had a chance to use too much of it yet. It is very, very new. So I'm pretty much just started exploring it last night. But I have found that it works up very similarly to It's a Wrap Rainbow. So if you're familiar with that one, then you know how this one works up as well. In terms of consistency, color to color, so far I haven't noticed any big variations between within the colorways. Like I said, with this much variation, I think they'd blend together pretty well anyway. That said, as I mentioned, there is a dye lot, so do be aware of that when you buy the yarn for your own project. I haven't worked with it, like I said, too much yet, but I haven't run into any tied pieces yet. That said, with this really thin yarn, I do expect to hit a couple knots in each cake, but they are usually quite small and you can work right on over them. Just give them a good tug, make sure they're not about to come apart, and you should be able to just keep crocheting right along. Let's see, what else? Obviously no thin or thick lumpy parts. It's very smooth, very consistent. I haven't found that it fuzzes up with use at all. Cotton acrylic blend, I don't expect it to. Obviously, I found it much easier to crochet with than to knit with. Again, if you're an experienced knitter and you enjoy working with these finer yarns, I think you'll really enjoy this yarn. There are some great patterns already on redheart.com for it. You probably won't see any of them from me. I think I'm going to stick to crocheting this one. In terms of beginners, it is very fine. I probably wouldn't learn to crochet or, for that matter, knit with it, not just because of the fineness, but because of the propensity to split a little bit into its component parts. I think that would really frustrate someone who was very new to crochet, or knitting for that matter. So I think you'll want to have a little bit more experience under your belt before you work with this one. But, I always say a determined beginner can do amazing things. If you've fallen in love with this yarn and you're determined to use it, go for it. But if you get frustrated, you might want to try something that's a little tighter plied for your first project. So I think this yarn is going to be absolutely gorgeous for garments. That's the kind of pattern I'm designing with it. Of course, shawls, accessories, all sorts of things. I think you could really make a beautiful tote bag with this, something really delicate. It would be gorgeous for filet crochet. Really, I think the possibilities are huge. I probably wouldn't use it for necessarily hardware items because you don't want to throw it in the dryer. You do want to lay it flat to dry. But anything, you're going to wear or enjoy this summer, I think this yarn will be perfect for. With that 50-50 cotton acrylic blend, I can't wait to make my own summer top out of it. And I hope you guys will enjoy it too. So that's been Red Heart It's a Wrap Sprinkles. Again, be sure to go to the link in the description. There I have linked out to the Red Heart site. I show you all the different colorways. I've got some free patterns for you to try this yarn out with. And eventually here coming up on Moogly, I will have a free pattern with, of course, video tutorials featuring this yarn coming up here in the month of May 2019. So you can keep an eye out for that as well. Thank you so much for watching. If you spot Red Heart It's a Wrap Sprinkles in the store, be sure to give it a feel. It's got a gorgeous hand to it. Pick up a cake. See what you think of it for yourself. Give it a try. If you love to knit with it, let me know what you think. Give me your tips for knitting with it because I was really struggling a little bit. I'll be honest. I'm sure there's a very great tip that some knitter out there has that solves that problem. So please do share it in the comments if you've got it. This yarn should be available in stores, particularly Michael's, but of course, every store makes their own decisions, so you can always go to redheart.com to purchase It's a Wrap Sprinkles. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the Moogly YouTube channel for more yarny fun. And thank you so much to Red Heart for sponsoring this video. Have a great day.